Good morning. Welcome in. You are on the lifeboat. This is Captain Calhoun speaking. The Admiral is not in this morning, but that's all right because I'm here to take care of you. So the YSL trial finally coming to a close after 2+ years of farting around. What is going on? We're going to get into this. It's quite interesting, quite complicated too, I have to say. They could have done a better job, that's for sure. Anon, good to see you. Jason P, Galen, Lacey, Silver, Kathy Ogram, good to see you guys. Blue Waters, welcome aboard. I will be elaborating here shortly. What's going on, guys? TKK, Roberta, Kristen, Melinda, Jeremy Fowler. Yeah, guys, it's going to be a fun episode, I have to say. Rick Spicer, good to see you, man. It's been a while. Yeah, I was just reading your guys' communications while I was getting prepared, and I noticed Lacey was talking about the second judge. This trial has been a debacle from Jump Street. The jury was selected in January of 2023, and they didn't start trial until November of that year. And this was due to some of the, if you're familiar with RICO trials, what that means is it's an organized crime, or it's a crime organization. So they're attempting to charge an entire organization with charges. There was 60+ charges on this list. And the nature of a RICO case, you can bring in all kinds of witnesses, all kinds of this and that. They don't necessarily have to be directly tied to the crimes, right? That's the nature of the RICO. The RICO charge allows lots of leeway for bringing in witnesses and whatnot. Unfortunately, for the district attorney in Georgia, Fani Willis, I don't know exactly what went down, but it certainly seemed like she was very disorganized. Imagine having a case where you can bring in 27. There's 27 co-defendants or 26 co-defendants. You can bring in all sorts of witnesses, right? Imagine having that, but needing to keep it organized in paperwork form. This is something that the DA seemed incapable of doing. In fact, I don't know if it was the second or third judge, but the deciding judge, the one that we ended with just now, was seen coming down on Fani Willis for being so disorganized. In fact, I would have to say that someone in the chat said Young Thug beat the RICO case. Wild. I don't know if that's exactly what happened. I think that the DA kind of beat herself, to be honest. Fani Willis did not do a good job, allegedly, in my opinion, did not do a very good job. And, a lot of the witnesses were changing their minds, changing their testimony after the fact. A lot of the witnesses were uncooperative. Fani Willis definitely had a very difficult time tying these strings together. It seemed like she was very disorganized. Would she have been more successful if she was organized? Probably. I think it would have been more effective for sure. I don't know. Who knows if he's actually guilty of this stuff? But so what's the word? The verdict is in. Young Thug, I don't know his actual name, but it's written down somewhere, pled guilty to some gun and drug charges, which, on the list of charges, there was armed robbery. There was all sorts of stuff on here. I think he could have done worse. But I will say he's looking down the barrel of quite a bit of probation. He's going to be having to serve 15 years of probation, half of which 7.5 years of checking in with his probation officer and doing drug screens, as well as he's going to be required, Jeffrey Williams, that's right, thank you, Blue Waters, as well as he's going to be required to speak to children 4 times a year about anti-gang stuff, anti-gang violence. And the judge also said to him, if you choose to keep rapping, you're going to need to be more a part of the solution than the problem, which I thought was an interesting quote. Rap music isn't all that way, and it definitely wasn't incepted as a violence as what it has become today, right? So it's interesting. I wonder if he will change his tune in his songs. He did just drop an album where he did not change his tune, but that was before the sentencing. You know, I have to say, I'm having a hard time getting inside his head. I mean, I guess I definitely wouldn't want to be spending years in jail while I'm on trial, right? But at the same time, I feel like he could have gotten away with all of it. I feel like if he had stuck it out, there's no way that they could have pinned any of this on him. But again, what do I know? I'm just a guy, right? I'm just some guy, just reporting. But I definitely feel like what he ended up pleading to, and let's be clear here, he did not take a deal. What he did was the defense and the prosecution could not come to terms that they both agreed on. So they chose to let the judge decide. So what that means is Mr. Jeffrey decided to put his fate in the judge's hands, right? He is taking a deal, but it's a deal that he's not privy to until, I mean, I guess it's not a deal, but the judge is going to lay down a sentence, right? We're just going to end this thing and judge me, which I think is a very scary thing to do. If I'm Jeffrey Williams, I'm not super into that. I think it's really hard to get a fair trial these days. Every time I've been in court, it definitely seems like they have all the cards. I don't even know how this system works, and I'm subject to it, you know? And it's very, very interesting thing. I'm not entirely sure what's going to be coming from Mr. Jeffrey moving forward, but I am very curious to hear his new music. Is he going to change his tune? Is he going to even do music at all? I will also say it was a RICO case. It was definitely a RICO case. Galen, good to see you. Sandy Wandy, James Collins. For always, forever, for life. Hello, welcome aboard. It was a chance he took, 100%. And I mean, it's either take that chance or continue to struggle. And I can't slide him for that. You know, I would definitely want out of jail. And what you're looking at here is he can be free, right? He has to check in with probation. He has all these stipulations, but he can be a free man and live his life, or he can continue to sit in jail and go through this farce, which I believe it was. I believe it was all a big old farce. Not my favorite trial that I've ever watched, I have to say. We have a question here. So Diddy could do the same, spend a couple years in jail waiting for a judge to give time served. I don't think so. I think Diddy's going down hard. And also, it's worth noting that this Young Thug case was a RICO case, a state RICO case, right? And what Diddy is facing a myriad of different charges. I think he's facing civil as well as, I don't know if the federal charges have been filed yet, but I mean, the feds do not raid your house and then not press charges. You know what I mean? They don't have a double raid on both of your properties on opposite ends of the country at the very same time, just to not charge you. So he is dealing with civil stuff, but he will also be dealing with criminal charges if he's not already. And I'm not very versed on the Diddy thing. That's more my dad's wheelhouse, but they're very, very different. I do not think that Diddy is going to end up in this position at all. Yeah, and also I think that the Diddy case has a lot more eyes on it than the YSL thing did. It's definitely catching a lot more traction. But also there's some more. There is more. So he has 20 years backloaded on his sentence. So if he's not successful in completing probation, he's looking at 20 years in custody, which is quite a bit. You know, you're looking at having supervision for the next 15 years of your life. I don't envy that at all. For always, forever, for life says Diddy is facing civil lawsuits, but he is indicted on federal charges. Absolutely. So I think the Diddy case is much more complicated. And also the nature of what Diddy's facing, I think, is a little different than what Jeffrey was looking at. Has anyone ever beat a RICO case? I mean, I guess technically Jeffrey just did, although he didn't 100% win. This is a good question. Let's see what the old internet has to say. Please hold. Yes, there is records of individuals successfully beating RICO charges. Interesting. It looks like the cited cases that were beaten, the defendant withdrew from the alleged criminal enterprise before the racketeering activities occurred. So what this means is they may have been part of the organization, but they ceased to be before the alleged crimes took place. So that looks like an effective defense that has worked in the past. Again, yeah, and this was the RICO charge came into existence to put mobsters away. That was the purpose of it. That's where it came from. Blessed to Crochet, good to see you. And you know, I really thought that this case was going to be a lot more exciting. I guess the intrigue with Fani Willis was really the most exciting part about it. The reason they had to get multiple judges is allegedly Fani Willis had a romantic relationship with the first judge, something to that nature. I also was reading about before Fani Willis was the DA for Georgia, the district attorney, she was a probation officer, and one of the witnesses or co-defendants, I can't remember which, but one of them used to be on probation in her office. So she had not a romantic relationship, but she had a relationship with one of the individuals already. In fact, part of me feels like she threw the case on purpose. You know, this is the same DA that tried Donald Trump. I don't think that this person, allegedly, that's right, I don't think this person really doesn't have their stuff together. Someone doesn't get to that position and not have their stuff together. Now, again, people make mistakes, people drop balls, which definitely happened here. But, you know, there's too much spicy behind the scenes stuff that I keep reading about that makes me feel like she intentionally threw the case. You know, it certainly seemed like she was a role model and a positive influence for, again, I can't remember if it was a witness or a co-defendant, but someone that was on the stand. They had a relationship beforehand, like probation officer, probate. I don't know what the words are for that, right? But this person Fani Willis had been this person's probation officer previously, right? Now they're the district attorney in a very different position, right? Trying these people, prosecuting these people. So, I mean, that in itself seems like a conflict of interest to me. There's all kinds of intrigue about Fani Willis. I doubt that she's going to be getting big cases moving forward. I think this might have been the end of her career, at least the end of her career's trajectory. It's definitely going to take on a new form moving forward, in my opinion. I don't think you come back from something like that gracefully. You know, that's my opinion. And Gaylin, thank you for the gifted memberships. We appreciate you and your support. Looking good in green, folks. ASAP Lizzie, good to see you. Very spicy, very, very spicy. Yeah, Diddy's definitely done, folks. And I imagine we're going to have some more information on that later today. My dad has been hounding the info on it. And, you know, I really I want to have more to say on this, but there's not a whole lot to say. We went over this. We went over this. 100 hours of community service each year. So that comes out to 1,500 hours of community service he's going to end up doing. And I'm very curious. So he's required 4 times a year to go talk to children about anti-gang stuff. I wonder what that's going to look like. He obviously has to do it, right? And again, this ties into, I wonder what his music's going to sound like. Didn't sound like that was an actual requirement. It sounded like a suggestion from the judge, because you can't tell someone you can't say this in your song. You know what I mean? Unless you're talking about, there's a couple exceptions that involve the president, you know, and other things, but he can rap about whatever he friggin' wants to. You know what I mean? As far as I know, I don't think that if he came out with an album tomorrow that was like, screw Fani Willis and this and that allegedly, I don't think that they could do anything about it. It's free speech, right? They definitely tried to cite his lyrics as inciting violence and encouraging gang activities. I don't know what the words they used were, but fat chance, you know, really we're going to have a really hard time pinning lyrics on somebody. And it always blows my mind when they bring lyrics into court as evidence. It's like, this is a creative outlet, right? You know, this is fantasy. This is a song. It's not a memoir, you know? Boris Cruz finally made it. Welcome in. So that always blows my mind. And, I don't think this is the last time they'll try to do so. Free speech is 100% on trial all the time. I feel like they would like to take it away, but it's still here. We can still say what we want for the most part. Donna Kebab, hello, hello. Lynn Sanity, welcome in. And again, he didn't plead guilty, but he did plead, well, I guess he pled guilty to a couple charges and no contest to some of the gang stuff. I feel like that's a mistake. Like it didn't seem to me like there was much evidence of anything. They were having a really hard time connecting all the dots, all these witnesses having nicknames and not speaking proper English. And it was very difficult. It was very, very difficult. And let's give Fannie Willis some credit, right? She was not dealing with the easiest trial to get a conviction out of, I have to say. And also beforehand, you could probably tell that it was going to kind of go something like this. So she could have prepared better as well, allegedly. Quite disappointing, in my opinion. I'm quite disappointed. I think that we could have gotten a lot more out of this. Could have gotten a lot. I was pretty excited about it because I like his music sometimes. Some of his stuff is pretty weird. There was no RICO proved in the YSL case. That's correct. It's election year, and getting a RICO conviction was a ploy for Fannie to win the election again. Interesting. The more I look into politics and these sorts of things, the more I realize that these people are so different from we are. I wonder what it takes to get into a position like that. It must take a lot. It must take a lot of compromising and sacrificing morals, because I don't feel like I see anybody in an office. When I say office, I mean a position like the district attorney or a senator or the House of Representatives. I don't see anybody holding office that seems to have their moral value intact. They all seem to be driven by purely money. And that goes to show, I think that says a lot about the amount of money moving around over there. I think the whole thing's a busted system, yo. Where did the cool hat come from? Asked Jeremy Fowler. This was sent to me by a boater. I'm not entirely sure. Most likely an auction or a yard sale or something of that nature. I would have to imagine, like a thrift store. I think that this was thrifted for me by the great Robin Miners. I'm not supposed to. She asked me not to shout her out, but I'm so grateful. Sometimes I have a hard time. Kip Miller, good to see you. Galen, I 100% agree. The waste of taxpayers' money is sad for the citizens of Fulton County. And it's not just the citizens of Fulton County. I mean, for the YSL case it is. But our tax dollars are being allocated not to things that we get to choose. Our tax dollars are being allocated, however, and on my nose is very itchy today. And honestly, I don't really agree with any of it. Picture this. Picture the state. The government is not responsible for your roadways. Imagine that we're responsible for our surroundings. Imagine that's our job, our responsibility. Imagine the change that would enact, right? I'm not having to rely on the government to keep my roads repaired. I actually have to go out and do that, right? We have to organize as a community, which is a good thing, to get things done at home. I think that is a much more effective way of running a country, of running a community. And again, I'm just a guy. I'm not overly educated. I'm just a guy that grew up, pretty rough. But tell me how that's not a good thing, right? I think that part of the problem in today's world is the lack of connection, is the lack of people getting together. There's a lot of estrangement in communities. When you're sitting at a red light in traffic, if you look to your right and you look to your left at the other cars, you don't know them. You don't feel empathy for them. They're just people. In fact, on a busy day, you might not like them because they're cutting you off, or, there's too many cars between me and my destination. I think that inherently is an issue. If we had tight-knit communities, I think that a lot of things would work a lot better. I think a lot of things would move a lot smoother. I think that connection, or the lack thereof, is a huge problem in the world today. And I think that the government, and again, I don't know if they're intending to do so or not, right? But I think that in effect, the way that things are working, the way the system is set up, encourages that estrangement. And I don't have solutions, but I do imagine, I dream of a world where these things aren't so bizarre, where these things actually make sense. Kip Miller, have everyone's day going today. Beautiful here in Waco. You're in Waco, Texas, huh? That is fantastic. It is a beautiful day in Tucson, Arizona. I tell you what, it is wonderful out there. I can tell it's fall by the way that the light is softer, which is a weird thing to say, but it's nice out there. It's probably one of my favorite seasons. Donna Kebab, thank you for saying that. Donna says, I am awesome. Social media definitely plays a big role in this, Blue Waters. I would have to 100% agree with you. More screen time, less human interaction. And social media has the potential to bind us together, right? To bring us together. But I think that it existing alongside these other systems that aren't necessarily geared to connect us, because originally that was the whole purpose of social media, was more connection, right? It has become something else. It has become a place for advertising, a place for division, and a place for manipulation. But I don't know. Imagine what would happen if we changed some of these other systems. What would happen if we took responsibility as the people in a community for the things in our community, rather than relying on the state or the government to take care of them, like streets, like the post office, I don't know. And I'm just spitballing. I haven't even considered the widespread ramifications of the post office being run by a community rather than the state. But I think the state in my opinion, has its hands, and the federal government has its hands in way too many pots. And that creates a whole lot of issues. And I mean, there are those that would like to rely more on the government. And I think that the more, if you look over periods of time, the past leading up till now, we are relying more and more and more on the federal government. Do you think things are getting better and better and better? I disagree. I think that they're getting worse and worse and worse. And not to say there are ups and downs, but if you were to plot them on a graph, I think that the trend is not upwards. I think the trend is downwards. And I think, again, this is just my opinion, and it may be very unpopular with some, and that's okay. We can disagree and still be friends. That's quite all right. But I think that it has a lot to do with us relying more on government, putting more money into the government, the federal government. We're talking about people that get to decide what we can and can't do, right? We're talking about people that have dominion over us. And I don't think that they necessarily deserve it. They're definitely not earning it. They're definitely not doing anything for me or for you, in my opinion. In fact, every single abortion ad, every single Social Security ad that I see every day, all day long, the only ads that I see are politically driven and designed to freak us out. It's insane to me. They don't have to. Apparently, there was a law change recently too. You don't have to be honest in advertisements anymore. You can bold-faced lie about people and things, which didn't used to be the case. That used to be illegal. So I feel bombarded and manipulated when I stare at the screen all day long. I have to say, how do you guys feel? Because I definitely am a little bit extreme sometimes with my thoughts and my actions. I definitely feel like I'm not like everybody. I'm a little bit different. I definitely have a pretty outside of the box opinion sometimes. So I would like to ask you guys, what do y'all think about all this? And again, we can totally disagree. It's fine. But we are going to love each other. We're not going to be mad. We're not going to be mean. That's how we're going to do this thing. All right. It is frightening, right? I agree. It's very frightening. Caddy Connie, good to see you. Not on topic, but had to tell you, for Halloween, I dressed up like Millie the Imp. Well, fantastic. I didn't dress up like anything, guys. I'm pretty bummed out. And it was my own choice. I will say tomorrow we're going out for Day of the Dead, so maybe I can rectify that tomorrow. Time out, humanity. What's going on? I think humanity should take a big time out as well. I think that's a great call. Everybody, no matter how heinous they are, is entitled to a fair trial according to the Constitution. Innocent until proven guilty, but I guess not. I often feel like it's guilty until proven innocent these days. In fact, every time that I've been in court, I definitely felt treated guilty. You know what I mean? I definitely felt like everyone assumed I was going to take the deal. Everyone assumes that you're guilty, which is very weird. It's the exact opposite of what you're told is the way. And that's my opinion. I use social media for avoidance, says Anderson. It is very good for that. It's very good for an escape. As long as we're still taking care of our business, right? There have been many times in my life where I have escaped, and then realized that I hadn't taken care of anything that I needed to for a very long time. And then I had a hole to dig out of, which was not fun. Yeah, you got to prove you're innocent. Literally, that's what needs to happen, right? Because otherwise, the system's just going to sweep you away. And I don't think that's how it always was. I think that's what we have become over a long period of time, longer than I've been alive, right? I think that it's a gradual thing that's happening. Essie Mac, can someone show me how to become a maker? I can't read this. Start to build catastrophic mistake. If you can reword that so I can understand, I will 100% respond. Christine says, question, thought there was case investigation about misinformation and lies to USA citizens. Saw AJ, not sure of state though. It seems odd about that certain people can incite violence, but not all. I'm not sure I understand. Yeah, okay. I'm relating to this to something that I've been thinking. I don't know if this is what you are saying, but some of those ads certainly seem to be divisive enough to incite violence, but not directly, right? I think that they are playing with fire. I think that if this is allowed to go on, these false ads, I think that we will get closer and closer to this line, and we will also end up crossing this line. And if no one stands up and says, what the heck, right? Or if only one person has a problem with it, if we don't all stand up and say, I don't think so, I think that it's going to start looking like that. I think ads will start to be more blatantly divisive rather than covertly divisive. And I mean, it's one thing. So they are blatantly divisive as far as they're talking about subjects blatantly that are obviously divisive, like abortion and religion. And, you know, the ads are literally pulling at your moral values that may be opposed to your neighbors, which is fine, right? We're a melting pot. That's what this country's all about. But the closer they get to that line, the scarier it becomes. That's for sure. They're already crossing the truthfulness and falsehood line. So at what point do we say no? I mean, I think we're well past the point where it's okay. I don't think it's okay anymore, but they're still doing it. And you know, the real trouble becomes, in order to actually have like an effect, it's not enough to just go vote. I have to literally become involved at the state level, because everyone that's representing me is an idiot. Everyone that's representing me is nothing like me. And I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but I don't agree with anything that these people are doing. And they may say something that I agree with, but they're saying it I can tell they're saying it intentionally to pull my little heartstrings, right? Whether or not they actually feel that way is a mystery to me, because it's all about money and votes, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't think it's enough for me to go vote. I think I actually, to make a difference that I want to see, I have to go get involved at the state level, which I don't want to friggin' do. That's not where I see my life going, you know? So it's a sad, kind of hopeless little sitch. I tell you what. For Always, Forever, for Life says, what really terrifies me, that now that AI is so big, we don't know what's true anymore. I feel sorry for the kids that are coming up now, because they believe everything they see on social media. I have to say, when I was younger, one of the first things I learned was don't believe everything you see on TV. Are we still teaching our kids that? I wonder. Because that rings even more true today in the face of AI. I 100% agree with that. It is scary. And you know, when is the Matrix going to be real? That's pretty outside of the box, but I feel like it's only a matter of time before we have a war with the machine, right? Maybe I'm kidding. Maybe I'm not. What's this political propaganda? That's right. That's what I'm talking about right there. You may have just watched an ad. Because I know every time I watch one, that's what I think. That's literally what I say. What is this political propaganda? Literally every time. I don't get ads for non-political things anymore. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. Update question. I saw an Attorney General USA state investigating lies, rhetoric versus free speech to USA citizens. Also, marketing commercial used to be consumer. So it's really hard for me to understand when you guys don't speak in complete sentences. I end up reading the whole thing and then I get to the end and realize I've retained no information. I know it might be hard to type more words, but I really, to communicate with me, I need for me to understand, I need you to speak in complete sentences and not skip words because I can't understand what you're trying to say. Blue Waters, on the other hand, different platforms present different points of view. 100%. Everything's biased these days. And hopefully people will understand it's not all about what the news says on TV. I mean, 100%, I think the TV is now a tool to guide and control people. I don't think that there are unbiased news outlets. You can get close, right? You can get close to unbiased, but it's interesting. And is that just the money corrupting effect, or is it something more? I definitely don't think that anyone is keeping these news outlets in line, right? No one is checking and balancing. No one is signing off. They don't have to answer to anyone. They only have to answer to their wallets and their paychecks. And somebody's paying for certain narratives, that's for sure. And I definitely did not intend this stream to become government bad. That was not my intention. But the YSL trial is pretty lame and not very exciting. But I am stoked it's over. I am a citizen of Fulton County and I wanted Thug to do time. That is a very interesting point of view. I mean, are you saying that just as from a taxpayer perspective, or do you believe that he's guilty of these charges? What's your, I'm very curious because I don't know what to believe as far as the truthfulness, as far as his guilt or not. What do you think that he's guilty? And if you do, what do you think, what's the impact that he's had? Because I have no idea. This is not somewhere that I live in and not somewhere that I go, or I don't know if I've ever been to Fulton County, to be honest. Because what you think, what am I trying to say? Your experience is much more valuable than mine, right? Because you live there. You're a taxpayer. This was clickbait to campaign for Trump. That's not true. I didn't say his name except to cite the Fani Willis trial. You can get out of here. You can never come back. How about that? Rude. Now, if I wanted to campaign for Trump, I would campaign for Trump. But that's not what's happening here. Yeah, there's no politics here, folks. Now, I was really looking forward to that person saying some things that mattered. That sucks. That's unfortunate. That is unfortunate. Does anyone else in this stream live in Fulton County? Because I was pretty excited to hear what a Fulton County resident has to say. Obviously, that Fulton County resident had nothing valuable to say. Well, folks, if you like what we do here, hit that like, subscribe, and the bell for notifications. Certainly makes a big difference. I believe the Admiral is going to be going on here in about 20 minutes. Don't quote me on that. Usually that's what happens, but we haven't spoken about it this morning. So what's on the docket for the day, Spanx? Well, we could do some painting, but I don't have any new canvases. So we either have to revisit something old or completely paint over something old. What was his sentencing, says Kip Miller. He's going to do 15 years of probation, half of which are where he has to check in physically and do drug screens. And if he's successful with that probation, then he has a backloaded 20 years that will be time served. Now, if he's unsuccessful in completing his probation, he's going to do 20 years in custody. Now, on top of all of that, and also it's worth noting, some of the charges were ran consecutive and some of them were ran concurrent. It was very complicated. There was like 60 plus charges, right? But it ended up being 15 years of probation, 20 years in custody if he doesn't complete probation. But also he has to talk to kids 4 times a year, whether at a Boys and Girls Club, an elementary school, about the dangers of street gangs and gun violence 4 times a year, as well as do 100 hours of community service each year. So he's looking down the barrel of quite a bit of supervision. It's worth noting, I think, the judge also, it seemed like a suggestion to me. It didn't seem like a requirement. There's definitely some gray area here, but told him that he needs to start rapping about positive things. I believe the quote is, "I would like you to be more of the solution and less of the problem if you continue to rap." So I'm very curious to see what his next album is going to sound like. And I could paint this thing, but I really like it black and white, so I'm not going to. But there are some other things we could paint. There are some things we could do. I don't think that I'm going to go wildly out of my way to come up with a new art medium today. But if one jumps out at me, we will do it. I was definitely not planning on painting today. I was really looking forward to getting some new canvases. We could do a music stream, but again, that's just going to look like me playing guitar. I don't think that that's really what we want to do. But I'll think about it. You know, I'll definitely try to come up with a different idea. You sent me another one, Robin Miners. You did. I do have here. Please hold. I haven't opened this yet, but Shrinky Dinks. I'm not entirely sure what to think of these, so I have to look at them so that I know. It's hard to imagine just from the box, but from what I understand, I paint these and then I bake them and then they change size. So we've got like all these little cutouts. There's like a robot. There's all kinds of different stuff. There's like a lizard. And then I can put them on pipe cleaners to make them pose and little stands to make them stand up. And there's colored pencils to color them with. It shrinks over 1/3 of its original size. So, allegedly, I know this has nothing to do with YSL now, but I'm tired of talking about it. It's not all that interesting. Apparently, this guy is going to like shrink to like this size, which is kind of neat. We could do some of that later. We could definitely do some of that. I know you guys are really, really fond of the art streams. I'm going to have to come up with more than just painting. And also, I've been thinking 30 minutes is generally what we do for that. And I don't think it's long enough. So maybe what I'll do is I'll get a couple canvases and we can prep one, right? Like a background and whatnot. And then we can bedazzle one. When I say bedazzle, I mean put details and whatnot. So we'll have 2 at different stages. Like this one yesterday, we put the eyelashes and the eyelids and the details of the redness. And, you know, we could still come back and give him psoriasis or maybe put an eyelash in his eye and then make it really irritated right there. Like there's detail stuff, right? So we can do one that's just blank and get the background going and kind of get a base. And then we can let it dry and move to a different canvas and do some detail work. So we can have 2 projects moving simultaneously very easily, which I'd like to do. That'll make for better time use. Probation for so long seems likely to result in violation. What would happen if he gets violation of probation? Well, he'd have to serve 20 years in custody, which means prison, I believe. Regardless, it would be 20 years behind bars. So it also seems to me, I mean, I think he made a mistake taking this deal. I mean, you put your life in the judge's hands, and the judge is someone that can't relate to who you are, what you've done, where you've been. I think that was a mistake. And again, I mean, I can't fault him, though. He's been in custody for 2 years fighting this farce. I think he wanted it to be over. By the time I got to the table and started watching the trial live, the defense attorneys weren't sitting anymore. They refused to sit. They were standing with their arms crossed, like, this is ridiculous, was what their body language was saying. So I think that it has gone on for far too long, and everybody was sick and tired of it, the judge included, which, again, I mean, I feel like she handed down quite a harsh sentence for such a travesty of a trial. I would be pretty pissed if I was Young Thug, I have to say. And, you know, maybe he's grateful to just be out there and be free. Maybe he has no intention of doing probation. Who knows? Who knows? I have no idea. But the judge definitely, the judge can't relate with what he's been through with his life, 100%. You know, I could tell just by looking at her. And, you know, maybe that's judgmental of me, but I don't think anybody in that room could really relate with where he's been or what he's been through, other than the co-defendants and the witnesses. I don't think even Fannie Willis, honestly, maybe more than the rest of them, but I don't think so. I mean, I did not read this, but I mean, he's a smart guy if that's the case. I think it was a terrible decision. Like, am I going to complete 15 years of probation? I don't think so. Knowing myself, I get pretty sick and tired of being constrained pretty quickly. 15 years is way too long. Way, 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 way too long. I mean, is that even realistic? Yo, that's like half of this guy's life. Like, he's got to be like 30 or 40, right? He's not an old man. That's insane. It's insane. And what's purpose could 15 years possibly serve? 15 years of being watched? Like, what is the point of that? I mean, obviously they think he's guilty, so I guess that's the point. You're just crippling the guy, though. You know, you're just crippling him. Yeah, recidivism does seem like a high probability. I'd have to agree with you, Christy. Yeah, he was also, so he's restricted to travel in the metro Atlanta area, which the Census Bureau gets to decide what that area is, and it may change, I believe was said. So he can only go to the Atlanta metro area for like the death of a family member, for like a funeral, for like a graduation of a family member. And there was a couple other special cases. But for those cases, those are the only reasons he can go to Atlanta, the metro area, and he can show up 24 hours prior, and he has to leave 48 hours after, which is where he lives, as far as I know, right? That's like where he does most of his business. I also took note that the judge said when handing down this sentence, that as it doesn't, she made special exception for his business as well. So as far as making music, he can go to this place and do these things and see these people. He's not allowed to associate with any gang members or anybody on the witness list, anyone on the co-defense list, other than his siblings. I believe it was like his brother and someone else that is in his immediate family. And also, it certainly seemed like outside of music. So he, which seems strange to me. It's like, all right, you're a gang member. I don't want you to see any of your gang members, except if you're making music together. That's certainly what it sounded like. Maybe I misheard, but it certainly seemed like there was an exception for making music. So he can do all of the things that he is not supposed to do as long as it's in music. But maybe I heard that wrong. It certainly seems like a farce. Anywhere for business reasons. Well, it's all business reasons now, huh? It's all business reasons now. He's always doing business. Everywhere he goes, it's a business trip. And maybe it does help him turn his life around, Jane. I hope so. I mean, again, I don't know if he was guilty or not. his music certainly seems to be centered around these kinds of things, but again, that may be just his experience. YSL was a music group, right? And they're trying to make it sound like a gang, and maybe they're right. Again, I'm not an expert. I don't really know. Good morning, Kellyanne. It's good to see you. Many nuances in this case. It was a drag. It was quite a drag doing all this research, I have to say. Because, even after you sift through all these crappy details and get to the actual truth, it's not even like I got any endorphins at the end of it. I wasn't rewarded at all. The end of it was like, what? What is this sorcery? What manner of magic is this? Yeah, it's over now. So there's that. There is that. All right, guys, I think I'm going to get out of here. Leave some room for my dad to get his stuff together. But you guys have a wonderful day. I may end up seeing you later today, but if not, we'll see you tomorrow. All right. Captain Calhoun out. Thank you for all being here. Thank you all for sticking this out with me. I know it wasn't the most exciting thing, but at least we know. At least he's a free man now. I think that, in my opinion, I think he deserves to be free. All right. Peace out, guys. Much love.